All right, well, I think we're going to get started. Thanks so much. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us for this webinar. My name is Chris Vonderweidt, and I work at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, where I manage the aquaculture program, which takes an industry needs-driven, business-minded approach to supporting sustainable growth of the region's aquaculture industry as a way to preserve and diversify our working waterfront communities. You're going to be hearing only a little bit from me tonight and a lot from Carissa Maurin, who's also a part of the aquaculture program and played a key role developing this site. We decided to put this webinar on for two primary reasons. And one is we want to try to help sea farmers understand how to take full advantage of the suite of tools that are available on the site. And also, as a new tool, we'd like to get the word out about the site. So please spread the word to your fellow growers if you think they could benefit. Next slide. So before we go any further, I'd just up front like to thank the Maine Aquaculture Association, who is an important industry partner on the project, as well as Focus Maine, who is our fiscal sponsor. Next slide. And then also a huge shout out to all the businesses who took time out of their busy schedules to give us feedback and subject themselves to user testing. And really, we couldn't have come up with this site without industry being really generous with their time. So next slide. So let's get into it. We're going to start by giving a bit of background and development information, kind of a high-level overview of the tools, and then run through some live examples on the site. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll spend about 15 minutes answering any questions you might have about resources or questions that we had developing the site. In the meantime, please feel free to type any questions in the Q&A section. So if you go to the bottom of your Zoom window, there should be a Q&A button, and click that and type your questions in, and one of us will answer them during the presentation or at the end. And also, it's worth noting that we're not using the chat function. So if you ask a question in chat, it might get missed. Next slide. So for us, the idea of and a need for a business knowledge portal goes back a few years till about 2016. And basically, Maine is very rich with aquaculture support resources if you know where to look and who to talk to. But if you're starting a sea farm, you're probably a very busy person. You might be working a full-time job while starting your farm. And so it's hard for you to find these resources, contextualize them into the different steps in starting, building out, growing a farm. And there are just a lot of steps that you need to learn and anticipate in order to succeed. So our goal here was really to facilitate business success of Maine's aquaculture industry by helping you prevent mistakes and centralizing business relevant resources into one place. And the last thing that I'd really like to stress before handing it over to Carissa is that we designed this site for you, Maine's aquaculture industry. We view you as our customer, and the way we went about development was working to understand your needs and information preferences. And then we built a site that reflected what we heard as far as your preferences. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Carissa, who will get in some of the details and walk you through the rest of the presentation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. And as Chris mentioned, my name is Carissa Maurin, and I'm an aquaculture project manager here at GMRI. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the user testing that we went through. So like Chris said, the industry was the main customer for this website. So we made sure that we checked our preconceived notions at the door of what we thought the site should be and let the aquaculturists tell us what they wanted to see. Industry involvement was fundamental to our approach and guided our every bit of decision making throughout the entire process, from every step to architecture of the site, to the design of the site, and even the content of the site. And after having multiple conversations, we came up with our guiding principles for the site. So early businesses don't really they don't know what they don't know. And how can a startup find the right resources if they're not even sure what the right questions they should be asking are? So we created our Start a Business section that maps out key decision points to starting a sea farm and embeds resources within FAQs. The diversity and variability of Maine's aquaculture industry means that there will never be a one-size-fits-all solution to business challenges. So we don't try to provide all the answers. Instead, our goal is to increase the use of existing resources that Maine's remarkable aquaculture community already provides. And many of Maine aquaculturist resources are geared towards new and inexperienced sea farmers, such as our Start a Business Guide, our resource database, and our Get Funded Guide. However, industry veterans that we spoke to advocated for and make use of our searchable resource database, our job board, and our regulatory updates tracker. And after having multiple conversations, we also learned that when sea farmers have a question, they ask another sea farmer. So we drew inspiration from these informal information sharing relationships, and we created our case study resources that provide a glimpse into the mind of industry veterans from diverse backgrounds and share critical insights that allow readers to draw from their successes as well as avoid repeating their mistakes. Aquaculture business owners have to adhere to a level of professional transparency that's much higher than that of other industries. And we wanted to reflect that commitment in this knowledge portal. All of the resources on our site have been vetted for industry to ensure that they are accurate, relevant, and business oriented. And probably the most important thing here is that we created this site with a continuous mindset of improvement. We look at this site as a living, breathing website that's constantly being improved and updated. That's why we're always interested in suggestions from the industry. We definitely want to hear what you have to say. You're our customer, so we always want to know how to better serve you. So with that, we are going to launch a poll to get to know you all a little bit better. There we go. You should see now a poll on your screen. So there's 2 questions for you to answer. And there's no right or wrong answer, so don't be afraid. All right, it looks like the polling is almost ending. We're going to close it shortly. So get your final answers in. Okay, so you guys should be able to see the results of our polling now. So we have a lot of different individuals here. It looks like we have some new sea farmers, some veteran sea farmers, and some oyster farmers. And all of you are very welcome, and thank you for attending. So we're going to move on now to the next section of our presentation. And this is going to be an overview of the tools that the Maine Aquaculturist provides. So when you log on to the maineaquaculturist.org, this will be the home screen that pops up before you. So you can see here, we are on the Essential Start Guide to Maine Aquaculture. And this is where you will begin. I'm going to key you in here to our navigation up at the top. So you can see that we are on the Start a Business section of our website. And that you can tell by it being the font there being slightly bolded and darker. So that will always let you know where on the website you are located. So now, if you wanted to get into the Essential Start Guide for Maine Aquaculture, you can click here at this See the Guide button, and that will automatically scroll you down past this Becoming an Aquaculturist blue box, and that will get you right into the guide. Additionally, you can manually scroll down if you wanted to. And that's kind of our motto with this website is when in doubt, scroll down. There's always more information below that you can check out. So if you click that button, you will pop into our Get Started guide. And here you can see that we have mapped out a few different sections to this guide. We have do your research, select your site, running your farm, running your business, and selling your product. So these are the overarching sections that we kind of created. And as many of you know, this running a sea farm or beginning a sea farm is not a linear process. So we do have these subsections that go to each of these overarching sections. And these will have different ideas and key topics that you can dive into deeper. So if you clicked on one of these subsections, you will pop into a detail page, which will look something like this. So here we have our detail page for community engagement. You can see that there is a quick summary up at the top there. And then we have these FAQs that are listed underneath. So these are general questions that you might be asking or you should be asking about this certain topic. And then we provide a general answer there that kind of should get you thinking in the right direction and hopefully have you start looking for resources that will help answer these questions. You can see here that this FAQ is unfurled and that's with the minus sign right there. And this one is not unfurled and that one has a plus sign. So all of these will have information underneath them. You just have to click that little plus sign and it'll pop right up for you. So again, when in doubt, scroll down and underneath our FAQs, we have related resources. So these are the 6 most relevant resources to that topic. And by clicking any one of these resources, it will open up onto a new tab on your browser with that resource. So therefore, you don't lose your place on our website. So any resource you click on will open a new tab, and then you can always jump back to our site on the previous tab and start over or look at another resource if you'd like to. Additionally, if you scroll down, if there are more than 6 resources that are relevant to a section, which there are plenty of sections that there are, we will have this box at the bottom of the page that will key you into that. If you click the view more, it will take you to our resource database that has a pre-selected filter for that topic, for that specific topic. So here, if you click the view all, you would have a pre-filtered list of resources that are about community engagement. So what other filters are available, you might ask? Well, we're going to get into that just next. We're going to check out our resource database. So again, we're back on our homepage, and I'm going to direct you to our navigation and our Find Resources tab. So you can click this, and you will jump into our resource database. So we have over 200 resources in this database, and it's growing every day. Here is what our resource cards look like, and some of the information that we provide is the title of the resource, a quick summary about the information that you'd find on that resource, the type of resource that it is, the date of publication, as well as the organization that authored that resource. There are many different ways to search or narrow down your search when using our resource database. You can always use our typed search. So of course you click in here, type it, press enter, and it will help with those keyword searches and filter it down. We also have these overarching kind of big, broader topic filters here that you can click on if you're not 100% sure what you're looking for and you'd like to get a better idea of what resources are available. We also have this unique filter button here that says show only Maine resources. So if you click this, only resources that have been authored and in Maine will pop up for you. We do include resources that are authored along the entire East Coast, and some of them are very relevant to aquaculture no matter where you're farming. But if you are specifically looking for a Maine resource, this button can help you out a lot. And finally, our filter button. So this is one of our most important features that we have for our resource database. If you click it, it will unfurl, and you can see that there are different topics that you can click to filter from. One of them is species. The next is key ideas. And if you notice, a lot of these key ideas are linked to sections in our Start a Business guide. So again, if you click on that view more, you will find one of these filters applied to your database search. And finally, we have type. So the type of resource that it is. So we have many different types here, but I'd like to drill in a little bit to one of our unique resources, our case studies. So we'll learn a little bit more about those. So if you click case studies as a filter, you will see some of these case studies pop up before you. This is mostly new content, and it's tied to growers looking for information from other growers. So these case studies will provide critical steps and insight into those critical steps. We also have case studies scattered throughout our guide where they're relevant. So we have a plethora of people who have authored these throughout the industry. These include veteran farmers, people who have worked on mooring systems, and even chefs that have given us information on why they buy certain oysters. So I said that we have our case studies scattered a bit through our resource, through our Start a Business Guide. So we're going to check that out right now. So here we're back into our Start a Business Guide, and you can see that we're in our second section, Select Your Site. And down here under the subsections, we have a case study that is authored by Bill Mook. And this is how to being a good aquaculture lease applicant. So this is very relevant to selecting your site, because once you've selected your site, you do have to apply for your site, and getting a little bit of insight is always helpful in that aspect. And this page might look a little bit familiar. So this was the related resources from the community engagement detail page that we looked at previously. So underneath the FAQs, we have our related resources. And here you can see a case study that is authored by Joanna Fogg from Bar Harbor Oyster Company that's relevant to community engagement. So this is another place where you might find that anecdotal farmer to farmer information. So we're going to jump back to our home page here, and we are going to take a look at our Get Funded guide. So if you click this link up here, you will jump into our Sea Farm Funding Options Guide. And again, this gives a basic overview of the different options for funding your sea farm. We give a little bit of information about grants, capital loans, risk management tools, which won't provide you funding, but will help get you funding, and investments such as equity and debt. And if you click on one of these larger boxes, you will jump into a detail page that's very similar to our Start a Business detail page. So again, we have a quick summary followed by these unfurlable FAQs. And if you scroll down, there will be related resources for you to click on as well. So now we are going to take a look at another section. So this is something that our veteran farmers were keenly interested in. So we have our regulatory and legislative updates page. So if you click that right up there, you will jump into our state regulatory and legislative updates. So you can see here we have an updated date, and this is a screenshot from last week, but we do update this page weekly, sometimes multiple times a week, depending on how much activity there is. So you always know that you're getting the most up-to-date information for these particular bills or regulatory changes. The top of the page, you'll find our Maine Department of Marine Resources regulatory changes that are pertain to aquaculture specifically. So we have our recently proposed regulations listed here. They will include the link to the text as well as the comment deadline, as you can see right here. And then we also include the recently adopted regulations. So any regulation that's recently been accepted, we put the effective date along with that text as well for you to check out. And if you scroll down, you will then jump into our Maine state legislation, bills and hearings. So again, this is Maine state legislation, and this is specific to the Committee on Marine Resources. And we follow bills that are related specifically to aquaculture. The Committee on Marine Resources will hear plenty of bills on different topics, but this is just for aquaculture here. So we follow, right, currently we're in the 130th Maine state legislature, so that's 2020 to 2021. And we will provide the bill text as well as information on hearings that are scheduled. So, and that will provide a link for testimony, so you can submit your testimony online and you can listen live. We'll also track the bill as it goes throughout the legislature, so you can make sure that we're following on that and up to date with it. Back on our homepage, excuse me. I wanted to tell you guys that this is all publicly available information for our Maine state regulatory and legislative page. And if you wanted more detail, I highly recommend that you contact Maine Aquaculture Association. They do a really great job for tracking bills and regulatory changes and staying up to date on that and getting information on them. And they lobby not only in the state, but also nationally. So if you have any further information that you're curious about, I highly recommend that you reach out to the Maine Aquaculture Association. So now we're back on our homepage and we're going to check one of our last options that we have here, our job board. So if you click on our job board, this will pop up and you'll see a list of the most recent jobs that are available in the aquaculture community. So again, this is state of Maine, and these are full-time positions, part-time positions, seasonal positions, and internships and more. So anything that is involved in aquaculture, we will have is allowed to be on this job board here. We definitely are always looking for new job submissions. So you can click this link here that says use this form, and that will jump you to our job submission form. And we're, again, always looking for new opportunities anywhere in the aquaculture field. So additionally, we will have at the end of every page, so the footer of our page, you will see a submit a job post link at the bottom. So if you are curious or just kind of pops into your head, again, when in doubt, scroll down and you'll see that submit a job and they'll bring you to the submission form. And finally, we have our submit feedback button here. So you can contact us if we want to always stay up to date. And again, you guys are our customers. So we're always interested in, if something in our guide needs updating, if we're missing information or a resource that we don't have, or a question, anything like that, we are always welcome to hear your feedback and we look forward to it. So that way we can make sure that we're serving you as best as possible. All right, so we're going to move on to our live examples section of the PowerPoint. But before we do that, we're going to do another poll and we're going to see what information you guys are interested in finding about. So we are going to launch that in just a second. And you should now see that up on your screen. It looks like we're getting some answers in, so that's great. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for answering these questions. We're going to stop polling in just a second, so get your final answers in, please. All right. All right, so you guys should see the results of our polling here. So across the board, looks like everyone's interested in some really great information here. So that is especially business development and farm operations and planning. It's great. Great to hear, guys. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to our live examples. And just give me 1 second because I'm going to have to switch my screen for you guys. Okay, so now I have pulled up the Maine Aquaculturist, which is our website that we have. Again, this is our home screen that you saw in the PowerPoint before. So we're going to do two different examples to give you an idea of what it's like to use the website. So we're going to do 2 different scenarios. The first scenario, I'm going to say that I am an oyster farmer and I'm pretty new, but I've already picked out my site and I've already applied for my lease. So I'm kind of interested in gear and mostly just where do I buy my seed from? Where should I get that from? So that's kind of the information that I'm looking for. So once again, we're on the start guide. So I'm on the right page here. So I know that. And I'm going to click the see the guide button to jump into our guide. And you can see that automatically scrolls me down. Again, you can manually scroll down. And don't forget our motto, when in doubt, scroll down. So here we have the first section. So this is do your research. And I'm looking a little bit here. And this is stuff that I've already done. I've already picked out my site. I've already applied for my lease and gotten it. So to me, this information is not what I'm specifically looking for. It all looks like great information, but not for me right now. So here we go, third section, running your farm. That's where I'm at, and that's the information that I'm looking for. And we can see right here, the second subsection here is about seed. And so that's what I'm questioning about. So I'm going to click that and jump into the detail page. So here we are on our detail page for seed, and I can see a quick summary here. And again, I said I was an oyster farmer, so I see right here, oyster seed, and I see a great FAQ. How and when do I order oyster seed? Doing a quick summary of that, I see that you have to order that from a hatchery, and it's important on when you place your order. So that gets me thinking and gets me a little bit inquisitive there. And I can see there's a couple other ones here. I can unfurl them and read more about what seed side I should order. How do I take care of my seed afterwards? And this is great because it's very general information, and it gets me thinking a little bit more about the specifics of my farm and what questions do I need to be asking in order to place my seed order or anything like that. So I can see that. And then also I noticed that even though I'm a oyster farmer, there's information on mussel seed here, on scallop seed, as well as kelp seed. So that's just good information to have. And again, we're going to remember our motto, always scroll down. When in doubt, scroll down. There's more information. And I see here related resources. So these all look like really great resources to me. And I see here this East Coast Shellfish Hatchery Nursery Directory. And that sounds like something I would be interested in. So I would click that and it would open up another tab, and I can start scrolling down on this information here. So now that I have that open, I'm like, okay, what other information is there available? So again, I don't lose my spot. I can click right back on that tab and scroll down and see if there's more resources. So here we have more seed resources in our database. I'm going to click that View All button. And this will jump me to our resource database. And you can see here we have the pre-selected filter, seed. So that already narrowed things down for me, which was great. You can further narrow it down. I am an oyster farmer, so I can narrow it down by my species and click oysters, and then see all the information that we have related to oysters and seed. And again, feel free to click on any of these to see more information. And if for some reason you want to clear all your filters and start from scratch, you can always click our Clear All button, and that will set everything back to the beginning. So we're going to move into our second section, so our second example. And we're going to click the Maine Aquaculturist button right up here, and that will always take you right back home. So we're restarting. So our second section, I'm going to say that I'm a mussel farmer, and I have been doing this for a few years now. I have a lease. I've been growing my mussels, and they've been doing great, but I'm really interested in expanding, and I'm really kind of wondering what type of equipment would be necessary in order to expand my lease and my productivity. So I don't really need to know how to start a business because I already have my business up and running, but I want to find a resource. So I'm going to click that Find a Resource button right there. And again, I'm looking kind of for gear, and I'm going to go into our filters, and I'm going to select mussels because I'm a mussel farmer. And then I want to filter down even further. So we're going to click the gear button. And that will filter it down to a couple different resources that we have. And so you can see that there's a few. However, the first one looked like very interesting to me. So how a high-tech mussel farm harvests 7,000 pounds of mussels per day. And this video, as I can see down here, highlights stocking, hauling, a stripping machine, declumper size grader, debissing machine. This sounds like what I'm interested in learning about. So I would click this and watch this video and hopefully learn more about sizing up my company. So with that, we are finished with our live share section of the presentation. And we are going to move on to our final section, our questions. So we'd love to hear from you guys and see what you have questions about. So Chris has been monitoring the question and answer section. So Chris, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Well, Mike, thanks for your question. I'm not sure if people are familiar with the Q&A function of Zoom, but Mike asked if the risk management section included discussion of farm liability insurance and oyster tour liability insurance. And so we do cover the liability insurance. We don't directly cover the oyster tour liability insurance, but we do have some information about Coast Guard certifications and that type of information, I think in a safety section. Carissa, do you remember where?
Yes, that is in the safety section.
So, and if people have questions, please type them in the Q&A. We're monitoring the chat now, or you can raise your hand and maybe we could take a spoken question or two. We'd love to hear if you have any questions, suggestions. We've got about 10 minutes left, so. Carissa was just so thorough that that all questions were wiped away. That's great.
Thanks.
Oh, I see we've got Suzanne, you've got your hand up. I think we've you're on mute right now, but if you can unmute yourself.
Here's my basic question. What happens if indeed, if you're selling to a restaurant or people get sick from your oysters, whether your oysters are contaminated or the fault or not, what happens?
All right, well, thanks, Suzanne. That's a little bit outside of kind of what we're trying to accomplish, the type of information we're trying to provide here, but I actually used to work for the state, so I understand pretty well the basically what the state does if anybody gets sick, which is really rare. They have to recall all the shellfish, and there's a very robust tracking system where you can actually trace back when you go to a restaurant. There's a traceability, there's a paper trail where you can tell who harvested that shellfish from which farm or from which flats. So it's actually a quite robust system. So that's why you don't really hear about it a lot. And usually if you do, it's more about the amount of shellfish that was recalled. Other questions? Questions related to development of the site, or any suggestions for ways we could make it more relevant to industry, or just kind of anything along the lines of what we've been talking about? Is there anything on the steps necessary to get licensed? Yeah, Carissa, do you want to take this one?
Yes. So we do have information about licensing on multiple sections of our website. I can probably show you a little bit of them if you'd like. Let me pop in. So we do have in our Start a Business Guide, do your research, and that has information such as learn the rules. And so that will give you kind of a 101 on leasing and licensing, how to get permission for a sea farm, what types of leases or licenses there are, how to minimize agency review time, criteria. So this is, again, the very basic kind of 101 information. We do have links to the GMRI Aquaculture staff, the lease application forms, so that way you can find it. We also have 2 case studies, on one of written by the Department of Marine Resources, and one of them here you can see common aquaculture lease application mistakes. So that was actually written by DMR staff about items they routinely see that cause a bit of an issue, and just kind of helping others to clear that up. And again, this is another searchable item in our resource database that you can use.
And thanks for the questions, and we're getting a bunch of good ones now. Nick, just the other part of your question, the certified shell shipper, that's also in the information. I think it's actually an East Coast Shellfish Growers Association list, but it does have the certified businesses with the shipper, I forget the proper term of it, but with that license necessary to transport out of the state.
Yes, it is a resource for us in our resource database, definitely.
Deborah, you asked, would you say this site also provides valuable information for freshwater fish farming? And I'm really glad you brought that up, because one of the things that we didn't cover about the site is that we really focused initially on shellfish and kelp, because that's there are the most companies in those sectors in the state that could use the support, as well as the most resources there. But I think, you know, regardless of what you're growing, you're still going to need to deal with the regulatory issues. You're still going to need to deal with the communications and community issues. You're still going to need to utilize sound business planning. So there's a lot of resources that are really just kind of species agnostic on the site that I think would be valuable regardless of what you're growing. Greg asked the question, when is the next aquaculture and shared waters class? I'm not sure, but I think the Maine Aquaculture Association is leading that. So I would encourage you guys to contact them. Let's see, our Lovell, wonderful site resource. Well, thank you very much. It's really nice to hear. And then the other question, how are the site and development team financially supported? The same way, you know, we're soft funded, and you know, that's our model, and so we're going to continue doing that. But we do certainly understand that it's necessary for us to keep the site up to date in order for it to be useful. So we do have resources set aside to do that for the foreseeable future. Let's see, we've got 2 minutes left. Deb asked another question. What software, is it possible, free tools that you recommend using for budgeting, tracking costs, expenses, and fish counting? I can take that one. I would recommend contacting the Maine Aquaculture Association, because they've actually developed some business planning tools, and those are in the Getting Started resource database, where they've got ones for oysters, mussels, scallops, and they have some risk assessments there, and they have some business prospecting tools as well. So some really valuable business planning stuff, and I believe it's free of charge. So let's see. Bill asked about the right whale issue and how it's impacting farms and new applicants, and that's kind of outside of what we're covering, but it is certainly an issue, you know, where the aquaculture businesses shouldn't be taking right whales, because it would be a violation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And so, you know, it is an issue that's coming down the pipeline and that's being looked at, but I don't think any right whales have, you know, been harmed by aquaculture gear directly. And let's see, a couple more. I think we're going to take the last two from Todd and Greg. Can you cover any logistics to accessing the site, or is it as simple as hitting the URL, do we password or account credentials? Carissa, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's simple as hitting the URL. We do not require a password or entering your credentials in order to access the website at all. We wanted this to be easy and free for people to use from all walks of life. So we tried to make it as user-friendly for everybody. So that's why we chose that option. Great.
And Greg says, this is really impressive and helpful. Thank you for making this available. Well, thank you so much for attending, everybody. And, you know, you can thank us by using it, by telling your friends about it. You know, we want people to benefit. And if nobody's using it, then, you know, we're not happy at the end of the day. So with that, just want to say thank you so much, and please spread the word.
Thank you everyone for attending. This was a great experience.